Here to tell us more is Vivek Ramaswamy, Ohio gubernatorial candidate. Vivek, great to see you tonight. There are lessons that Republicans can learn from last night. In your view, from your vantage point, what's the biggest one?
I think the top lesson is that we have got to focus now on domestic economic policy, because as wrong as Zoran Mamdani's solutions are on affordability, it is the right problem to point to, where people in my home state, people across the country feel like their electric bills have gotten too high, feel like healthcare costs are out of control, grocery prices, or even you think about even just the daily cost of living or the affordability of housing. We're the party that has the right solutions. We just need to talk about that more vocally. A lot of that, Laura, is at the state and local level as well. President Trump, he's done his part. You think about, he's sealed the border. He has secured international peace abroad. So many accomplishments in the first 9 months of his presidency. That alone would be an accomplishment for the history books. But now it's up to leaders at other levels to now address those domestic economic policy issues, particularly this issue of affordability. And I want to see the Republican Party to be the party that actually leads the way rather than just sweeping this under the rug.
Well, that's the whole point of his effort to reindustrialize the United States. That's the whole point of the tariff agenda, the whole point of drill, baby, drill. And I think, with a little bit of time, that's coming to fruition. But the Democrats are fighting that stuff tooth and nail. So the things that actually, and also bringing down interest rates, with Jerome Powell, of course, always drags his feet on. So all of that will help toward the affordability issue. And you also need Republicans who are willing to, really be aggressive in Congress. And a lot of them are just, waiting for Trump to rescue them.
Look, I think we need to be aggressive at every level. You talk about the federal government to the states. What's the solution, Laura? Part of it's getting red tape out of the way. Too much red tape required to drill a new natural gas, either build a new natural gas pipeline or a new power plant. This is where the Trump administration has been outstanding at the federal level. Many states still have red tape along the way. Houses, we want more houses built, but there are land use restrictions that limit the construction of new homes. So we got to increase the supply of everything that matters. Democrats have constructed a lot of red tape for a long time, both under the Biden administration as well as at the state level. We need to unleash production of everything that matters. President Trump is setting that tone at the federal level, but it's not just up to him. You look at gubernatorial races, you look at that mayoral race in New York, it shows that a lot of these issues are going to have to be addressed also at the state and local level. That's where I want to see us lead as a party.
Well, Doge was all about cutting red tape, and all they did was fight Elon Musk tooth and nail. I mean, they fought him every step of the way. They demonized him. Cut red tape, demonize him. He's the richest guy ever, demonize him. So, you're up against that as well. I want to talk about one of the demographic groups that Republicans, have traditionally struggled with. Female voters, 18 to 29. 84% voted for Mamdani. 79% voted Spanberger. 81% for Mikey Sherrill. Vivek, what the heck is going on with female voters, especially young female voters?
Yeah, and you look at New York City, it was young voters across the board that went for Democratic Socialists. So you see it with young female voters, but I think it is true amongst young voters in general. We have to revive, Laura, the idea of the American dream. To them, it doesn't feel real. They're a generation that's skeptical of that idea of the American dream, when home ownership feels like it's a little bit out of reach, like they're working hard in the labor market but not quite getting ahead. This actually starts a lot younger. It starts with our education system. And this is an area where, again, we as Republicans can lead to say that our job of our K-12 education system is to prepare our young people to be effective contributors to the workforce, either the day they graduate in high school with education in the trades, or else to be a useful education and student in four-year college degree programs that actually prepare them without saddling them with four-year college debt that isn't serving them well. So a lot of those young Americans are cynical of that American dream, Laura, but our job isn't just to preach at them. It's to provide them that economic empowerment, because at the end of the day, my message to them is you still can't be cynical about this country. We're the last best hope on planet Earth where you're going to be able to pursue that opportunity. We just got to convince those young people to come along with us, and we will.
Yeah, the old Republican Guard, globalism, that was a complete disaster for the middle class, and it killed opportunity across the board. So going back to that can't work. But we understood from the pre-election surveys that the majority of Zoran Mamdani's support, at least in one survey taken before the election, he had the support of 62% of the foreign-born vote in New York City. Does that surprise you, Vivek?
Well, I mean, the thing that surprises me is a lot of the people who come, whether they're Latino background, you think about people from even Muslim to Jewish to Hindu backgrounds, should, in theory, according to their own religious values and otherwise, be conservatives. Family-oriented, entrepreneurial, that's what we should want. And I think we need a system that selects for the kind of people who share those American values, who want to pursue that American dream. And then for us to be the party that makes it real, to say that if you work hard, you play by the rules, and you assimilate into American life, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to double down on that. He expanded the coalition. We want to continue to expand it.
Absolutely. Vivek, great to see you tonight. Thank you as always.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.